राम राम हरे हरे। Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 3, entitled as The Lord's Pastimes Out of Vrindavan. Text 14. Kiyan bhuoyam kshapito rubharo Kiyan bhuoyam kshapito rubharo Yadrona bhishmarjuna bhima mulai Yadrona bhishmarjuna bhima mulai Ashtadashakshohiniko madanshai Ashtadashakshohiniko madanshai Aste balam durvishaham yadunam Aste balam durvishaham yadunam Kiyan bhuoyam kshapito rubharo Yadrona bhishmarjuna bhima mulai Ashtadashakshohiniko madanshai Aste balam durvishaham yadunam Kiyan bhuoyam kshapito rubharo Yadrona bhishmarjuna bhima mulai Ashtadashakshohiniko madanshai Aste balam durvishaham yaduna Kshapito rubharo Yadrona bhishmarjuna bhima mulai Ashtadashakshohiniko madanshai Aste balam durvishaham yaduna. Mataji. Kiyan. What is this? Bhuvaha, of the earth. Ayam, this. Kshapit, abated. Uru, very great. Bharaha, burden. Yat, which. Drona, Drona. Bhishma, Bhishma. Arjun, Arjun. Bhima, Bhima. Mulahi, with the help of. Ashtadash, 18. Akshauniya, Akshaunika, phalanxes of military strength. Matanshai, with my descendants. Aste, are still there. Balam, great strength. Durvishaham, unbearable. Yadunam, of the Yadu dynasty. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charnarvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. After the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, the Lord said, the abatement of the earth's great burden, 18 Akshaunis, has now been effected with the help of Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna and Bhima. But what is this? There is still the great strength of the Yadu dynasty, born of myself, which may be a more unbearable burden. Purport. It's a wrong theory that due to an increase in population, the world becomes overburdened, and therefore there are wars and other annihilating processes. The earth is never overburdened. The highest mountains and oceans on the face of the earth hold more living entities than there are human beings, and they are not overburdened. If a census were taken of all the living beings on the surface of the earth, certainly it would be found that the number of humans is not even 5% of the total number of living beings. If the birth rate of human beings is increasing, then the birth rate of other living beings is increasing proportionately. The birth rate of lower animals, beasts, aquatics, birds, etc. is far greater than that of human beings. There is an adequate arrangement for food for all the living beings all over the earth by the order of the Supreme Lord. And He can arrange more and more if there is actually a disproportionate increase of living beings. Therefore, there is no question of an increase in population causing a burden. The earth became overburdened due to dharma glani, or irregular discharge of the Lord's desire. The Lord appeared on the earth to curb the increase in miscreants and not the increase in population, as is wrongly put forward by the mundane economist. When Lord Krishna appeared, there had been a sufficient increase in miscreants who had violated the desires of the Lord. The material creation is meant for fulfilling the desire of the Lord, and His desire is that the conditioned souls who are unfit to enter into the kingdom of God have a chance to improve their conditions for entering. The entire process of cosmic arrangement is intended just to give a chance to the conditioned souls to enter the kingdom of God, and there is an adequate arrangement for their maintenance by the nature of the Lord. Therefore, although there may be a great increase in population on the surface of the earth, if the people are exactly in line with God consciousness and are not miscreants, such a burden on the earth is a source of pleasure for her. There are two kinds of burdens. There is the burden of the beast and the burden of the love. The burden of beast is unbearable, but the burden of love is a source of pleasure. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes the burden of love very practically. He says that the burden of the husband on the young wife, the burden of the child on the lap of the mother, and the burden of wealth on the businessman, although actually burdens from the viewpoint of heaviness, but are sources of pleasure, and are in the absence of such burdensome objects, one may feel the burden of separation, which is heavier to bear than the actual burden of love. When Lord Krishna referred to the burden of the Yadu dynasty on the earth, he referred to something different than the burden of beast. The large number of family members born of Lord Sri Krishna counted to some millions and were certainly a great increase in the population of earth. But because all of them were expansions of the Lord himself, by his transcendental plenary expansions, they were a source of great pleasure for the earth. When the Lord referred to them in connection with the burden of the earth, he had in mind their imminent disappearance from the earth. All the members of the family of Lord Krishna were incarnations of different demigods, and they were to disappear from the surface of the earth along with the Lord. When he referred to the unbearable heaviness on the earth in connection with the Yadu dynasty, he was referring to the burden of their separation. Srila Jiva Goswami confirms this inference. Om Gyan Timirandhasya Gyananjan Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Grim Yat Kripatamam Vande Shri Gurudin Taranam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Paramanand Madhvam Vancha Kalpatrubhescha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So this verse is spoken by Uddhav. Uddhav and Vidur, both of them have met at Vrindavan. Vidur was on his pilgrimage on Tirth Yatra, and he has visited almost entire Bharat. And now on his way, he wanted to spend some time at Vrindavan also. And after the Lord had departed for his abode, Uddhav, who also wanted to join the Lord, who also wanted to be there in that eternal Dham of Lord along with him, Lord instructed him, you stay back. I have certain important assignments for you. So he gave certain assignments for visiting the saintly persons at Badrinath. And on the way to Badrinath, he also happened to pass through Vrindavan. Uddhav was sitting there and Vidur came. Uddhav was so much in separation of Lord, and as soon as he saw another wonderful devotee of the Lord, he immediately became delighted, paid his obeisances, and Vidur wanted to know about the Lord, about Balramji, about other family members in Yadu dynasty, about Pandavas. So he asked one by one. He wanted to know, he was curious to know, because during pilgrimage he was not able to get any information. He was really curious to know about, and he had seen Uddhav now. So he asked. He was specifically asking the name of those Yaduvanshis. How is Parduman? How is Aniruddha? How is Vasudev? How is, like everyone he was naming, how is Balramji? All that. Now, as soon as Vidur asked Uddhav about the Lord, he was immediately in remembrance. He was already there in separation of Lord, but this really invoked more remembrance. It became as Uddipan Samagri, catalyst, So, he was there in the pastime of Lord in Mathura. He was there with the Lord in Hastinapur. He was there with the Lord at Dwarka. And also the Lord has sent him to Vrindavan. So all the pastimes of the Lord just surfaced on his heart. On his mind, everything was coming one by one. And this chapter and the previous chapter is basically the reflections of Uddhavji of various pastimes in remembrance, in deep remembrance of the Lord. He is totally absorbed. And now in this verse, while he is explaining one by one the pastimes of Vrindavan, Mathura pastime, now he has reached in this verse to a position, to a situation where the battle of Kurukshetra has already taken place. Now the Lord is planning to go back home. And while he is planning to go back home, what was in the mind of the heart, or what was in the mind of the Lord, what was in the heart of the Lord, it's being reflected here in this verse. So the Lord is thinking, if I go back alone, then this Yadudayana city would be a great burden on the earth. What is the meaning of burden is wonderfully explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Prabhupada is writing that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying it is not the burden of pain. Like sometimes the things are very heavy, you are not able to tolerate it. It's a trouble to you. You can't bear it. So it's not that kind of burden. It's a burden of pleasure for the earth. How it is burden of pleasure? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives 3 examples. Prabhupada has given it in the purport. For example, if a woman is going for an occasion, for a marriage or for certain function, then she normally wears lots of ornament. These ornaments are heavy, made up of gold or, in India, we do see in marriages, they are loaded, especially if the marriage of the very close relative in the family, they are loaded with ornaments. So these ornaments are heavy. It's a burden. But those ornaments are the burden of pleasure. They want to put it on themselves. The women want to put it on themselves. It's a source of pleasure. It's never a source of pain. It's never a source of distress for them. But these are meant to be wore for certain occasions. All 24 hours, all 7 days a week, 365. No, it's not that they are wearing. On certain special occasions they are doing it. So, when Lord was appearing here for his pastime, he would need many associates, and demigods were really curious to be there in the participate in the pastimes of the Lord. Now demigods were curious, also many associates of the Lord came from his dham, from his eternal abode. So this constituted the entire residence of Dwarika. Now Lord is thinking, I am now going back. This may be a burden for the earth. How it is a burden for the earth? For example, when a woman attends some ceremony, she puts it nicely. And after that ceremony is over, she nicely comes and then, place it, organize it and keep it at the safe. And very happily she is doing it. Very happily she is doing it. Now, the Lord is reverting back, is going back to his eternal dham. It's like the demigods are participating in his Leela as if all these demigods are ornaments on the pastime of the Lord. The Lord is coming here, performing certain pastime, so it's sort of an occasion. The Lord is coming here, it's a very special occasion for the earth. Now when earth is feeling pleasure that the Lord has come along with his associates, and these associates are beautifying the pastime of the Lord. But it is not going to be eternally like that. The occasions are for certain limited duration, for certain limited time. And as soon as the occasions are over, the things have to be properly kept back, nicely placed, as the ornaments after the occasion has to be properly organized and properly kept at the place from they are lifted initially. So the Lord is thinking that I will be doing it. It will be burden on the earth. What is the burden? The burden of separation. What is that separation? The earth is feeling that I was so much obliged, I was so much delighted by these associates of the Lord, by the Lord Himself. I was blessed with the mercy of the Lord for such a long time. The Lord was walking, was making His pastime, was associating with. So now the Lord is going, and along with the Lord, His associates are also going. So this is basically the burden of earth. Earth is thinking that how I will be able to tolerate this separation. So this separation is a feeling of pleasure also. Like it is mentioned that the remembrance of the Lord gives as much pleasure to the devotee as in the presence of the Lord. If separation is there and the devotees are remembering, Macchitta madgat prana bodhayanta parasparam katyantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Lord says in Bhagavad Gita that this is a source of tushyanti cha ramanti cha, happiness, pleasure, delight for the devotees when they are discussing about me, when they are remembering me. So this is a great source of remembrance for them. This is one thing. There is another point which I want to relate it to the Leela of Dhruv Maharaj. Dhruv Maharaj, on the instruction of his Gurudev, Naradji, he had certain desire in his heart. He wanted to have a kingdom bigger than the kingdom of his father, bigger than the kingdom of his grandfather, bigger than the kingdom of even his great-grandfather. So with that desire, he was reprimanded by his mother. He was greatly in distress, in anger. He left his home. Narad Muni met him. Narad Muni tried to persuade him, go back, you are just 5-year-old boy. You should not be. Let the time come later, maybe you can think of. But his mother Suniti has told that the Supreme Personality can only help in this situation. Nothing else can revolve, or nothing else can really help in this situation. So, with determination in his mind that I have to please the Supreme Person to get a place better than my father, that 5-year-old boy went. On his way, met Narad Muni. Narad Muni tried his best, but then later he saw he is determined, he is not going to go back. Narad Muni then gave him certain instructions. Told him that where he can go, there is a place in Vrindavan, Madhuvan, you go there, and what all is to be done, what all the way, processes, everything he explained to little Dhruva. And for couple of months, about 4 or 5 months, this 5-year-old boy was totally maintaining an absolute austere conditions. Initially, just eating a bit, stopped eating, then drinking a bit, even stopped drinking. A time came when he even stopped breathing also. And he was standing on one toe, the bigger toe of one of his leg. Such a huge, big austerity he was doing, and exactly the way Narad Muni has demonstrated Dhruv about the features of the Lord, about the ornaments of the Lord, exactly in the similar manner he was meditating on the Lord in his heart. Full austerity. Lord was manifesting in his heart, and he was constantly seeing the beautiful face of the Lord. The Lord was seeing him and he was seeing the Lord. There was no necessity, there was no external need ever felt. And for 1 month, more than 1 month, it was the situation. He was constantly watching at the Lord. Such a great fortune of Dhruv, that 5-year-old boy, constantly day and night, 24 hours, he was for 1 month or so. Next, about 5th month, in the 5th month, he was constantly watching the Lord within the heart. And Lord had manifested himself as he is. He was not breathing, he was not eating, he was not drinking, he was standing on one toe and constantly watching the Lord. What happened that with such huge austerity, the earth tilted on one side. Earth tilted on one side, and Maitri Muni says that it is as if one very heavy elephant has boarded on a boat, and the boat is like just about to capsize, just about to get drowned. That was the situation of earth, trembling, totally in distress, was feeling burden of Dhruv Maharaj. Now, when Dhruv Maharaj is watching the Lord constantly, do you think that such a devotee who is constantly in touch with the Lord, Dhruv Maharaj was a burden for the earth? That time was a burden for earth. That 5-year-old boy, maybe 25 kg in weight, would he be burden on the earth that time? The earth is holding so many mountains, so many oceans. Dhruv Maharaj was a small boy, but the entire earth tilted due to burden. That was the burden of pleasure felt by the earth. That such a wonderful, such a great devotee, such a deeply connected devotee at this young age, he is so much deeply connected to the Lord. So earth was feeling ecstasy. But Vayudev stopped. The air almost stopped. It was like a very humid condition. You can't breathe. Normally, whenever it is very humid, the oxygen highly gets merged with nitrogen, and that's why very difficult for the lungs to breathe it during humidity. So, similar of that situation, all the residents were feeling, all the devatas were feeling that they are not able to breathe, they are not able to breathe, they are not able to breathe. So they running here and there, and then they approach Brahmaji. So Brahmaji also couldn't make any clue, what is this? Then Brahmaji went to Narayan at Shir Sagar, and then Narayan said, don't worry, I am aware what is happening and why it is happening. Why you are not able to breathe, that I know, because I am the source of all the natural providences. I am the source of air also, and this small boy Dhruv has caught me in his heart. So I am absolutely fixed by him in his heart. So he is not breathing, though nobody is able to breathe. If I am stuck inside and he is not breathing, how can you all breathe? So this was the situation of all the residents, and this was the situation of even the demigods, those who are controlling the universal affairs. They got distressed, but Mother Earth was in ecstasy. She was in ecstasy of pleasure, because Dhruv Maharaj was right there on that part of Vrindavan, on that part of the earth, and was enjoying, was in great pleasure. So earth was enjoying in great pleasure. It was not a burden, it was a burden of pleasure. Now, how this really got resolved, how this situation got sorted out, the Lord said that none of you will be able to resolve it. I will have to go myself. The Lord called Narada, discussed with him, what exact feature you have told me? Please tell me. I want to go there in exactly that form, wearing only those ornaments, because if you have told something else, there will be problem. There was no reason for Narada to tell anything else. He's been with the Lord throughout. So he told exactly how the Lord looks like, how the Lord, what are his ornaments. So he explained, I have not told anything. As it is, you are there in his heart. So Lord came there to Madhuban at Vrindavan. He was standing outside. Dhruva never knew. He didn't notice that Lord himself has come sakshat. But how the Lord stopped is that he switched off the internal connection so that Dhruva's meditation, his samadhi should get disturbed. This is what exactly happened. Lord switched off the power from inside. He was not seen anymore. And outside what was happening is that the Lord was standing. He opened his eye and then same inside he was meditating, and the Lord has appeared right there. And as soon as the Lord appeared, he paid his obeisances, earth came back to his position. So, in the presence of the Lord only the thing could be organized. Now the Lord is thinking that I am going away. Till now everything is organized, the pleasure of the earth is there, but I am organizing the things. There is no external symptom seen. There is nothing external manifestation of the pleasure of the earth. But now I am going, there may be disturbances. There may be disturbances. If we see 11th canto, the disturbances, those could be there, are basically the disturbance that could come because the Lord has gone, and in the absence of the Lord, like in the absence of the Lord here at Madhuban, there were disturbances. Why? Because the devotees are giving pleasure to the Lord. But when the Lord was there, he was able to manage everything rightly. He was able to manage the ecstasy of earth properly. So what basically is stated here wonderfully is the meditation of the Lord. Before he is going back to his abode, the meditation by him, that if this is the situation, when I go back, then the earth will be in great burden. Then Prabhupada is mentioning a couple of other wonderful points also. Prabhupada is saying that actually earth is never overburdened by the material objects. What really pains is the miscreants, those who are committing sins, those who are committing aparats. That is the real burden of earth. In the beginning of 10th canto, we hear that the Mother Earth as a cow is approaching Brahmaji, that I am overburdened, I am overburdened. What is the reason of your overburden? There are so many miscreants, there are so many sinful people. I am not able to tolerate their weight, I am not able to tolerate their burden anymore. So all of them then goes again to Shirodakshay Vishnu at Shir Sagar, and the Lord says, okay, paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya taduskritam I will come, don't worry. But this time, I will not come. The source of all the incarnation, the avatari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself is going to get incarnated. So, the essence what Prabhupada is writing here is that the living entities are given chance here in this material world to fulfill their propensity of enjoyment. We all are away here trying to be Krishna ourselves. And in certain degree, in certain amount, we are acting as Krishna, as controller, as enjoyer, as owner. And that's why we are unsatisfied. That's why we are not in peace. Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, last verse, that the Shanti cannot come until three principles are properly understood and appreciated. Bhoktaram yagyatapsam sarvalok maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. One can attain peace, one can attain satisfaction, one can attain the tranquility only when he properly understands that there is only one bhokta, there is only one enjoyer, there is one owner, and there is only one suhrit, the friend of all. And just by knowing it well, gyatva, understanding it well, shantim richati. So Lord says it's not a very long drawn process. Only these three words are to be understood. But what is happening here is that the enjoyment tendency, the tendency to become the owner, and tendency to feel oneself as the best friend of his family members, of his surroundings, one is passing his entire life in this illusion. Earth is still bearing it, because this is one of the provision for which creation is done. This is one of the reason for which creation is done. But what happens is that if someone get involved only in excessively behaving in these three dimensions and committing atrocities, committing sinful acts, committing aparats, those things are not tolerable for earth. Like that time, Kans, Jarasandha and many other were really, Shishupal and all that, were really giving lot of troubles. That entire company of Kansa consisted of demons only. So many Lord killed. Every day someone was coming to Vrindavan and one was finished by the Lord. So many came to Vrindavan and that was a burden on earth only. So in a sense, this is one of the purpose of creation which earth knew, and another purpose is that Athato Brahma Jigyasa, finding that this material world is not a source of pleasure, actually it's not a source of happiness. Finding happiness in one object, another object, and trying it several times, and every time there is a failure, a distressful situation emerges, and that distressful situation forces one to think of what is the alternative? What is the recourse? This is not the way. I've been trying it. Puna charvit charvananam. I've been trying it, chewing the chewed every time. This is not really coming. The solution is not coming. I'm not getting happy. I'm trying it for happiness, but on the other hand, on the reverse, distress is added. The more one is trying to manage the material situation, the Shastra says, Bhagavatam says, the more he will be troubling his circumstances. The more he will be in trouble. The more he is trying to manage, the more he is going to be in trouble. So, that's why the second option, the second chance, the second alternative is that one who is really in distress, really in distress. And if he is Sukritivan, he'll be doing jigyasa, athato brahm jigyasa. What is the reality? Who am I? What is my relationship? Why I am suffering? All these things will be emerging. Like Sanatana Goswami asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kyami, kenumore jare tapotray. Who am I? He says that in Lok Vyavhar, the people in general thinks me that I am a Pandit, I am a very learned person. But I am telling you, I am confessing before you, I don't even know who am I. That is my degree of ignorance. Why I am suffering, I am not aware. Why these threefold miseries are coming upon me? Kenamore jare tapotray. Why is this tap, Adi Bhautik, Adi Daivik and Adhyatmik are always troubling me? So this is Brahma Jigyasa. This is Brahma Jigyasa. So this is what Prabhupada has mentioned here in this purport, that basically one should understand very clearly what is the reality of this creation, and then how the earth really have two kinds of burden. One is the burden of pain and one is the burden of pleasure. So when the Lord is going back, then he is ensuring that the burden of separation after my departure should not be felt, or the separation burden is going to trouble the earth. And this is what is stated here, that after the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, the Lord said, the abatement of the earth's great burden, 18 Akshonis, has now been effected with the help of Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna and Bhima. Till this point, it's a real burden, the burden of pain, burden of sinful persons. But what is this? There is still the great strength of the Yadu dynasty born of myself, which may be even a more unbearable burden. So, Jiva Goswami Pad says it's even more unbearable because that is going to be the burden of separation from the associates of the Lord. So with this, I come to the conclusion of my talks here. Srimad Bhagavatam Granth Mahapuran ki, Anant Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki, Shila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. If there is any question, any comment, Maharaj is there, or if anyone wants to add something, or... Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you. It's just I find it interesting that this verse, which is Krishna speaking about burdens, is saying that the burden of separation is so great, but it's the burden of the miscreants is a totally different category of burden. So that's interfering with the purpose of the universe, to progressive life, ultimately to bring souls back to Godhead. Now, this spiritual burden is now Krishna is thinking there's even a greater burden than the miscreants messing up the whole purpose of the universe. That's amazing that he's saying this is even a greater burden.
That's right.
Than ruining the purpose of the whole universe is the burden of feeling separation from God in a spiritual way. So I just found that to be something worth reflecting on. It's amazing.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Yes, when the devotees are traversing the earth, it's a source of enjoyment. It's a source of pleasure for the earth, actually. There is a song by Narottam Das Thakur. He says that Thakura Vaishnava Pada Avanira Susampada, that the lotus feet of the devotees, pure devotees, Thakur Vaishnava Pada, means that those who are Vaishnav Thakurs, their lotus feet, Avanira Susampada. Avanir means the earth. Susampada means that these are the biggest asset of the earth, the lotus feet. So this way, our acharyas are giving a direction, actually, what is the ornament of this earth. The ornament of this earth are the lotus feet of the devotees. Hare Krishna.
I'm now thinking, the first burden is the external burden. The burden within the external energy. Great burden, ruining the purpose of the universe. The miscreants do that. But then there's this internal energy burden, which is felt by devotees. Earth is a devotee. Devoted souls, they're feeling that you can't compare.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the weight of these burdens is being described as if you can compare them. But one is the external energy, one is the internal energy.
One is the burden of ecstasy.
Yeah.
Burden of ecstasy. The separation is felt by the devotee, like what is felt here by Uddhava. Uddhava is also in a similar situation. He will be saying about 50, 60 verses constantly, thinking about the pastimes of the Lord in Vrindavan. Non-stop, he's meditating on the pastimes one by one. In Vrindavan, this happened. In Mathura, this happened. He's not stopping because this is something now naturally coming out of him. His separation is getting multifold because he has seen a devotee. And by seeing the devotee, these things are really working in a very different way. Thank you, Prabhu, for your wonderful comments. Yeah. That's right. This can be felt in relation to a pure devotee by those who have associated with pure devotees. You're right, Prabhu. Thank you. Yes, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu, for the class. I was recalling how Mother Earth says, I can bear the burden of the mountains and the oceans, but I cannot bear the weight of a liar. In Srimad Bhagavatam. I cannot remember exactly which verse and which canto, but she says like that.
What is that statement she's saying? Tell me again.
Mother Earth says, I can bear the weight of mountains and oceans, but I cannot bear the weight of a liar.
That's right. It's also there somewhere in Bhagavatam only. Basic lying is a propensity. Why someone lies? Because he thinks that my comfort may get disturbed, my comfortable situation, my comfortable zone may get disturbed if I speak the truth. Now this vibration of such things, if someone is a liar, that vibration affects the environment. If someone is truthful, he is a devotee, his vibration affects the environment. Similarly, all these things affects. That's why we say that we have to be worried about the consciousness of a person who is cooking. Now, we are eating the same thing, but how that consciousness is going, how that consciousness is getting affected because of that vibration around him. Yes, Mataji. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yes, Mataji. Prabhu, can you pass to Mataji here?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I wanted to ask, is this, you were telling story how Dhruva Maharaj was doing austerities and this earth felt like elephant coming onto the boat and the earth tilted. Is this an argument for flat earth?
It is there in Srimad Bhagavatam 4th canto that earth was not able to stabilize. But the internal reason why it was not able to stabilize is not because of burden of pain. It was because the Lord was situated inside. He was so heavy. Lord is sitting in his heart. The Lord is heavy. So Dhruv was heavy with the presence of the Supreme Lord there in his heart. And that made the earth feel burden. Because the Lord is carrying the weight of entire thing. So the presence of Lord means the presence of all the essential aspects of the Lord. Lord is full of pleasure. So his devotees, those who are in association with the Lord, those who are directly there, like Dhruv Maharaj was directly in touch with the Lord. So the kind of pleasure that was emanating, the earth felt like that. Otherwise, Lord Krishna was there. So many incarnations came. The earth never tilted like that. It was always in ecstasy. We see in Vrindavan pastime of the Lord that the trees were bending down. In 15th chapter of 10th canto, Lord Krishna is addressing Balramji that, do you know that why these trees are bent? These trees are bent because they want to touch your lotus feet. So there are so many things which are spoken about but never tilted. But here in this case, the Lord was absolutely caught in the heart of Dhruv Maharaj. And because the Lord was caught and there was an exchange of blissfulness going on. So this is how it is also a bliss for the earth. It's like that. It's okay? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Srimad Bhagavatam Granth Raj Mahapuran